Hello, this is Molly. I'm going to be drawing some character designs, creating cute creatures. I'm planning on drawing some cute dragon creatures in particular. And before we get started, I wanted to let you know that my painting program I'm using here is called Paint Tool Sci. It's my preferred drawing program because I love how it's made for illustrators, so it has really beautiful line weight and it feels very lightweight compared to Photoshop, which I do use all the time. But when I'm painting, I love to draw in Paint Tool Sci, and my tablet that I use is a Huion tablet. It's 22 inches, and I'm going to start off by giving some animal anatomy tips, like using dog anatomy as a baseline, because dogs are easy reference. They're normally really accessible for people. A lot of people have dogs, and I like to use them as a good baseline for size and structure because they're average size mammal. And yeah, so let's get to it. I'm going to start drawing some dog anatomy to show you baselines for animals to use for your creature designs. So I'll start with head, just to show you general proportions for things. I like to do things easy circles to show, like, this is a side view. Here's the shoulders, here's the hips, and then like the tail would be right here. But think of the dog's anatomy in relation to the human anatomy. Their shoulders are similar to humans in the side view. It's just that their elbows are right here, whereas our elbows would be more down here. We have a longer upper arm. Their elbows are right here. And people a lot of the time get confused when they draw the dog leg. They think that like the back legs are backwards, that they're like double jointed or something, but it's just the same way where they have a longer extended bottom area right here. For humans, the foot is more like this, and like there's that joint for them, humans versus dogs. And so it's easier to break things down into shapes like this, very simplified shapes. For the forefront paw, here's their wrist right here, whereas for humans it's a long arm just like here, and then long fingers. And for dogs, you just think of like a fist, essentially. And that's how you get a paw. That's an easy way to think about it. It's a very simplified paw. And then they got the rib cage in here. And yeah, there's super simplified dog structure. So let's start on doodling some actual little dragons, and I'll walk you through the process of it. So I always start with circle for the head and then directionality of the face, and then I can figure out the pose, like if I want the neck to go this way, and it could be like paw up here or something. Try and do something really loose, really sketchy and dynamic, and maybe another paw here, like maybe they're really excited and they're like jumping up or something. Like maybe the nose is here and the eyes are here. And like, this is just one quick idea for a little sketchy sketch. So I'm gonna keep that one off the side up there. I'll make a new layer. I like to keep my layers as organized as possible. I always start with a colored background because staring at a white canvas for a long period of time hurts my eyes a lot. And it just also kind of influences what direction I want to go in sometimes for my color palette choice. And it makes it a bit easier later on to pick out those colors. So I just have some basic ears in here. This time, like for this one, I could have done any kind of ear, but just to give more personality, I can always go back in and add in more details later for getting the character design how I want. But maybe for this one, the character's leaping. Maybe they got a paw up. I like to keep these really dynamic for the sketches. I can always go back. So I can just do a bunch of these quick little doodles. Oh, that's from the other ear. I do a bunch of these quick little doodles, and then whichever ones I like, I can blow them back up to whatever size I want, and start working at them at a high resolution. Also, just a general thing I like to do, and I've heard a lot of other artists like to do, is to use a kind of sketchier brush for sketching. I have the normal pen tool that I use for really clean line work, but for doing sketches, if I use the pen tool, a lot of time I'll find myself getting stuck on getting really pretty clean, nice lines, whereas with this one it has that texture to it, and so it automatically makes me think of things as like in a sketchbook. So I can feel much more loose when I'm sketching with this pen. It's just a preference. So let's go back to the first thing we did. So I have a good general idea of where this is going, then I can play with it more. So something over here. I can play with the angle, get it more dynamic. I don't know. I think I actually like it better as it was. I think that's fine. So turn down the opacity on that one and start with another sketch on top of it. This is where the design phase starts, so just kind of play with things for a while until I get something that I like. I did like the idea of the roughly kind of ears, and I think I will still use the sketch brush for this. I'm doing big fluffy ears. This is the part where I can start layering on more detail. Do some little horns. I can also change the proportions since the sketch was just a baseline to figure out the pose. If I want to make any large changes, now's the time. I normally put little circles with the eyebrows, but I don't know if I want that one for this. It is cute. So let's figure out snout shape. Maybe like this. Make it shorter maybe. That's pretty cute. Little nostril. Okay. So I like that head. Can move it. Let's make this bigger. Since this is also just a sketch, I can always do the detailed line work on top on another layer. So I also like the idea that I have here, having like a puffy kind of fluffy chest. So I think I'm gonna stick with that. And keep the fur in really big chunks. The chunkier the fur is, the more stylized it is. I want to keep these really stylized. And for paws, there's the heart-shaped pad, and then you can draw out little circles from that. That's an easy way to get perspective, but it just takes reference in the beginning. You have to figure out how paws work, and then you'll be able to figure them out from any angle. As you notice, like, I'm still not worrying about being really precious with making everything super clean. That can be safe for the later phase. You might see me draw in like some musculature and details, but then I'll go back and erase them to keep it really simplified and cute, because the more muscles and detail you have, the more realistic it'll look, and it won't look as cute. So I'm trying to keep things fat and adorable. And so I'll go back and rechubify things. Once I figure out the pose, I'll go back sometimes and add in more details, like this guy will probably get wings. I'll probably change up proportions a bit, like his head is now starting to feel a bit small compared to the rest of his body. Line looks in really big because I resized that. That's fine. I can always fix that when I do lines again later, clean things up. But trying to get his shape how I want is the most important thing. When I'm looking at design elements, normally, because I've already figured out a pose for something, like sometimes I'll start off with an idea like I want to make a strawberry dragon or whatever the idea may be. I'll have a strong idea in my head for the design to start off with, and so I'll start off with a very basic standing pose, and then I'll just draw the design on there. But for something like this, where I start off with the pose first and then I'm trying to figure out the design after that, I'll cater the design to what the pose is. So something that would be on his back wouldn't be easily readable in this pose. So it would be easy to put in design elements like this that go down his side. Then, like, if you're looking at a side view, where here's the shoulder and here's the hip bone, it would be something like this. And so I think of that design in this perspective, and it would end up something like that, like this. But that was messy. I can always refine it later, but at least to get the general idea for now. And then, like, something on top of his arms, maybe right there. So these can all be one color. And I'll cross hatch it sometimes just to make it easier to figure out the design later. Maybe it also goes up here. If it still looks readable in the pose, then it means it'll probably work. I don't know how I feel about the tail going that way. It may be better if it goes this way. I'm trying to think of what would help with the flow of the pose the most. Maybe I'll do it back that way. And give this guy like a goat kind of tail. Maybe little spots going down the side. having an easy pattern like spots or filling in areas like this makes it easier for me to figure out the design as I go along. I can just try out things and see what works, but patterns are something that draws the eye with leading lines back to the main form. That one's gotten to a pretty good point. Now I can get rid of the original sketch. I'll just call that sketch. So I'll go on to the lines for this one. For this one I'll use the pen tool, and it's a lot more clean sometimes for something like this, especially because I'll probably want to make it into some type of merchandise. I'll put the minimum size up to 20 or so. That makes it so that there's less pen pressure, but it also makes the lines that they're a lot more standardized. There's all kinds of other things that you could try. Like I could have given them like stripes, Pikachu kind of stripes, or I don't know, I could give them like zigzag kind of patterns. It's all kinds of different patterns you can try, like larger spots, or like calico kind of spots, or leopard kind of spots. You can experiment with all kinds of patterns and colors. That's where you get to test your eye, your observation, to see if you can figure out what looks best for a design to evenly distribute those details correctly and get the right colors and everything to fit well for the design. All just takes practice. I feel like I want the feet to be sticking out in a different way. I may end up reworking that. I may want them to be like this. Maybe something like this. And here's the bottom of the paw pads. Have them tilting up a bit. I always like to try to show the bottom of paw pads if I can. They're just so cute. They're little beans. Overall for the pose. I don't think the perspective is right on the feet yet, but I like the pose much better overall. I'm trying to keep in mind the silhouette. I'm trying to keep this a really readable pose, so that like if you're just following the cutout outline, making sure that you can still tell what kind of pose this character is in, even if you see them from a distance. If you see this, like if this ends up being a sticker or something, it'll still be readable. change the pose a bit. I don't think that these are working as well. This design element, I'm gonna rework that a little bit. Like I said, the pose really makes a difference in how I'll design things if I'm using this pose first method. As I'm doing that, I'm also gonna adjust some other things. Make this paw a little bit closer and smaller. Now I'm trying to figure out new shapes that'll work well with this design. Trying to think of how things work on animals in the real world, how their patterns might work, and then changing it up a bit since it's fantasy. You can do what you want, but I don't like going too remarkable with crazy patterns and stuff. The face may have too much on it. I want to give him something like this to really help with that perspective, curving around the back. I think it can still work. Okay, so I'm going to go back to doing the lines now. Turn down the opacity on this, go back to the line there. I haven't lost anything. I only gained. So now that I have a better idea what I want to do, using the sketch brush again, I can just go in, flush it all out. Sometimes I'll go back and thicken up areas like where the points meet. This line meets this line. It's an intersection between different body parts. Thickening up those lines where they meet can help define them more. It's like leaving in a shadow essentially with the lines. Like I could do it right here too. I don't think I will. I'll just leave that as line right. I always like putting a shine on the eye. It just makes it feel a bit more dimensional. Without it, it just feels kind of flat. So it helps to add a little shine near the top of the eye normally because the light will probably be coming in from the top, I assume. And most of the time, I keep it closer to the edge over here because it gets kind of weird if you have an eye shine like in the middle of the eye. Like, it looks kind of droopy every time. here is like the edge, the lip of the ear. I like to define that and make some extra cute. Something about it. Even when dogs' ears are down, like this, I always think of dog anatomy when I'm doing these kind of creatures. But like, even if you have a golden retriever or a beagle or something, here's the lip that I'm talking about right there of the ear. But when it's upright, the ear has this area is the lip. Here's the outer side there, and then the flue fall goes in here. That's what I'm trying to emulate right there. His face is so chubby. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Do I want it? It's pretty cute. It's pretty cute. I think I'm gonna keep it. Okay, so lines are a little bit messy, but I can always go back and clean them up. That's easy enough. So what I like doing at this stage is coloring. That is the next step. Okay, so I just select the outside, selection invert. You can do this in Photoshop. In Photoshop, the shortcut is Control-I to invert. Inside, I also do dilate selection, or because it's the opposite way. You can do this in Photoshop as well, and just pull it in 5. That's good. That's just to make sure it stays within the lines. So now's where you get to do all the colors. And I know for sure, so let's start with what we know for sure. I know for sure that I want this to be a pinkish color. Wait, so for flats, sorry. For flats, I normally fill it all in at once. Let's see. I like the idea of purple, green, and blue for this little guy. Let's just start with a blue base. No. These are like some of my favorite colors that I like to pull from easily. That one's pretty good. I'm gonna darken up the lines, make it a bit easier to see them. So now that I have the flats, I can lock it so that everything stays, within the border. So that makes it easy. So start with the things that I know I want. I want the little blushy cheeks to be pink. I know that I want the eyes to be white. I normally don't like doing pure white. It's just too stark contrast. So let's see. The tummy should be a lighter color, pretty much always on every animal. The tummy color is always lighter. I also like to go back and recolor the lines afterwards, lock the line layer, and then for areas where it's like brown and red, I would make them more brown and red. Not just like that, but I mean, it just makes them feel much more cohesive in the design overall. That's something I'd want to do in the patterns layer. Details like this. Because if I don't like it, it's easy to erase it. Here's where I definitely want to recolor the lines and just make it a slightly darker, more saturated color. Make these not stand out so much. It's too much. Okay. Also, okay, I can't layer on top of the Lineart layer. I also like to add a separate layer and can make eye shines, whatever color I want. Let's see. Oh, that linear. There we go. I can blur it out a bit, make it blend a bit more. I can always go back and change up the color a bit more. Patterns layer. Also, I'll make this into clipping mask so that it only takes from flats. I won't be able to go outside the lines, outside of whatever's in flats. This one, I could just use a darker blue. I think that's fine. It does make me want to change the color of the eyes though, but let's try this. Let's see. Put the sketch layer on top so you can see what I have in there. Maybe I can't get this to work. Not sure. This line up with that pattern so it feels more believable. I feel like the pop pads are too great. I can do some saturation adjustments, hue adjustments, the eyes, see what feels better. I think the red might feel better. Purpley. Yeah, I like that better. Let's see. Maybe put some of the pink in there. That's cute. Okay. I think I'm also going to get rid of some of this texture in the ears. I think it might be too much. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that. This is where I'd go back and recolor the lines. Just make darker versions of the color that they're on.
Someday we'll meet again somewhere.
cute dragon. Yay! Okay, so I think he's finished now. Could always go back and do a little bit more cleanup, a little bit more polish, post-process kind of cleanup, but I'm pretty happy with the design. So I finished coloring the line art. I did a few touch-ups and adjustments, and this is the finished piece. I hope you enjoyed watching my demo. Thank you so much.